Hi guys, my name is Brandon Wilson and I am the general manager here at the Living Room Coffee House. I moved here in late 2009 with Mike and Kim Reynolds, and we later in 2010 planted Hillside Church. We actually launched on 10-10-10, which we thought was really fun. We're called as a parachute plant. See, we moved from Phoenix, Arizona into Marysville, and we had no idea who anybody was. We didn't know a soul. And I think we were probably naive and wide-eyed and ready to take over the world. We started in early 2010 gathering people and having small group meetings and whatnot, and we had our very first official service on Easter of 2010, and we did a few monthly services until October when we launched on 10-10-10, and we started to grow from there. We started services at Allen Creek Elementary School, and then we moved to the Boys and Girls Club down on 10th and Beach, and then we really felt, once we had been there for about 2 years, that God was calling us into a new place. We didn't know what our next step was, but we knew very quickly, once we started praying and kind of discussing it with others, where we were headed. We thought we were headed towards the movie theaters in Marysville. We thought we were going to have these really amazing services with a big screen and big lights and big sound, and we would attract a bunch of people. And as soon as we had our very first test service in the theater, we knew that was not us. It wasn't us. We needed some place where we could actually move the chairs so we could look at each other. We needed to be in that sort of relationship, that community. We said we needed to look at Marysville and say, what does this town need? There's 60,000 people in it, and there's not one place to sit down and hang out. You had Venatio Coffee at the time, but now that doesn't exist. And we needed community. We wanted to figure out how to create community, not just for us as a church, but as an actual town. In April of 2014, we started conversations with a group to start looking at renting a space in Marysville, which now is known as the Living Room Coffee House. And the way that God seems to have worked for us at Hillside is He moves swiftly. We started conversations in late March, early April, and by June, we had the keys to the space. We didn't have all of the funds heading into that. We didn't know exactly how a space was going to look. We didn't know what we were really going for. We just had an idea, and God seemed to really lay out all of those pieces right in front of us, and we just kept stepping out in faith again and again. In September, we had a soft launch on the 9th, and then on 10-10-14, we had our grand opening, just 4 years after our very first service. The 2 years that the Living Room has been open, we have seen a fan base grow and a community really gather around us. And when we first opened, I was the only barista, the only volunteer at the Living Room, and now we have a volunteer basis of about 15 to 20 people. I don't have to make coffee really ever. On July 7th, I was filling in a gap, an hour between two people that were working that day, and I happened to be making coffee, and a gentleman comes in with a logo that I recognize, and it's the people that own this building. And I said, hey, how are you guys doing? You guys still have the building on 4th Street? And he said, it's interesting that you asked that because we have a board meeting tonight to talk about what we're going to do with this building. See, that's how God seems to be moving for us at Hillside. You're going this one direction, but now you're not going this one direction, and we move quickly. July 7th, we had that conversation, and then by July 9th, we met the lead pastor at Impact Church. A week later, we were having a sit-down meeting with their board to talk about us taking over this space. As we prayed about it, and as we talked to trusted people in our lives and said, is this a good idea? This seems really, really fast. And everyone kind of said, it seems like a no-brainer. You guys probably should just listen and move. One of the things that we learned is that commercial space is very expensive. See, partnering with Impact Church allows us to keep the money here in Marysville and not in Canada. Our landlord at our other space, he lives in Canada and he doesn't care about Marysville, and that's okay, he doesn't live here, but we do, and we want to make sure that we continue to foster community and culture and relationships here in Marysville. See, one of the successes of the Living Room is that you don't really know that it's a church. We don't believe that people say to their friends, hey, let's go to that church and get some coffee unless you're already a Christian, and that's not what we're for. See, we want to de-church this building. We want to make it feel less like a church. Not because we're ashamed of our faith, but because the living room is known as the living room, not as Hillside Church. Here's how you can help us. We need to replace some of these ugly, gross, yellow/orange windows here. We also need some siding for the outside of the building. We're going to cover up some of these windows with some siding on the exterior of the building, and then we're also going to put insulation in between the glass and that siding. Believe it or not, this glass paneling does not hold in heat well. We also need some electrical work. Maybe just an electrician or some help. Those are some things that we know the city needs to inspect, and so we want to make sure that those things are done correctly. So those are 3 things that you could help us with. This ugly glass, siding on the building, and some electrical work. We would love to partner with you guys. We're so excited that you even want to hear our story and get any information out of us. We thank you so much. Grace and peace. Thanks, guys.